Welcome to the Aftershock post-game show. My name is Alex Morgan. I'm here with Jamon Moore, live after the San Jose Earthquakes 4-1 defeat to the Houston Dynamo. I think this was the longest San Jose Earthquakes match ever. Is that right, Jamon?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if that's the case or not. I would have to wait for some official word from the team that that's the case. Probably at least in the modern era. I don't remember a rain delay like that. Certainly gave the Quakes an opportunity to come back out and start firing on all cylinders, and they instead laid an egg.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The game started at 5:30, went until about an early kickoff because it was in Houston on Central Time. Went until about, 6:30, and then we didn't get started again till 9:15. The Quakes were down 2-1 before the stoppage, ended 4-1. They were not able to put on a show. They weren't able to game plan for those last 20 minutes, Jamon. I was expecting them. We were talking on the watch-along show that we did. I was expecting them to come out with energy, with intensity, but it just felt like the Houston weather, the storm, sapped all of that out of them. It felt like by the halftime, they were already tired and they never recovered that energy. Is that an accurate assessment? Or was I tired after the hour and a half rain delay?
Well, you and I were trying to do a show, and we've already done a show, and now we're going to do another show. So I think you and I deserve a little bit to be tired tonight. But yeah, it's weird because you're playing in 100 and plus degree temperatures down on the field at the start of this game. Obviously, the Quakes were trying to play kind of a slow game, trying to pull out the Dynamo so they could kind of play, and kind of try to control the pace of the game. Completely backfired on them. Tanner Beeson with a very poor decision to pass the ball across the box. I mean, there's a tap in. We're talking just a couple of minutes into the game here. And then they just get caught kind of standing around on a set piece. And the Dynamo just take off up the pitch, completely bypass the midfield. I thought it was a really good strategy from them to completely bypass the Quakes midfield as often as possible and just play down the sides. And the Quakes got caught, forward a little bit. And, Dynamo were off to the races for a second goals. And then when they came back out of the break, it felt like the Earthquakes were kind of, I don't know, like just expecting that the ball is going to eventually come to them or whatever. But they were so far spread apart on these two goals that there was just acres of space for the Dynamo to find simple passes and, simple cutbacks to be able to play to the far post. And, 4 goals, poor Daniel, he didn't have a chance on any of the 4 goals tonight because they gave so much space to the shooters to be able to take these shots. They were just, taking pot shots at that point.
I know. And that's probably the biggest bummer out of all of this, Jamon, is that, the Quakes, they'd lost the game in the first half. They never recovered their energy, but Daniel still had his defensive record intact. He doesn't have his defensive record intact. He was leading the league in save percentages, in goals allowed per 90 minutes. In all of the defensive statistics for the last 7 games, Daniel has been phenomenal. I feel like he's got to be at the bottom of those stats now in the course of one game.
No, it won't change that much. He'll still be close to a 78 or something save percentage. He's faced enough shots. He's actually already 5 goals above the pace. So all it's going to do is potentially knock him down. And it won't be 4 goals because the XG tonight was high enough that the Dynamo should have scored in a lot of those situations. We'll double check what the XG was if you might beat me there, but I bet you their XG is above 3. And so, they'll do just fine on terms of the XG. So a lot of that won't count against Daniel because, again, these were simple, wide open shots in most cases that
Jamon,
we just had no pressure to the ball.
Jamon, the XG, I'm going to tell you, it's not pretty looking for the San Jose Earthquakes. It's pretty grim. The Houston Dynamo had 3.2 XG. Earthquakes had 0.7. They did not have any XG after the what is this? The 45th minute? Oh, or maybe the stats are wrong because it's counted the game as being 240 minutes long. XG counter did not update.
The XG accumulated throughout the rain delay. No, I think it's still pretty accurate. That sounds about right to me. I mean, 3.19 on the expected goals. We'll have to check how much of that is counted in the post-shot expected goals, but it's quite a bit of it. Again, the Quakes gave them, very kind of simple finishes tonight.
And here's the problem:
there just wasn't enough pressure to the ball. There wasn't enough defensive pressure in the box tonight.
You have the first giveaway, which is obviously an error by Tanner Beeson, but then him and Rodriguez, I think, were at fault for the other 3 goals as well. They weren't one-offs. They weren't one-off errors. All 3 goals essentially happened in the same way. Houston getting in behind down the wing, putting balls in the box, and Tanner Beeson and Rodriguez didn't know where to be. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know whether to go pressure the ball. They didn't know whether to mark their men. They didn't know where their men were. They had no idea what they were doing. They were spinning around in circles, completely lost in the box. And it was really easy all 3 times for Houston to get on the end and put the ball in the back of the net. There was zero pressure on the ball. There was zero awareness of where the ball was going, and they didn't read the play at all. And that's a problem that we've seen brewing. That's something we've seen coming. Tanner Beeson and Rodriguez have not been a rock-solid defensive partnership for these last few games, Jamon. This has been a problem, and Luchi Gonzalez paid for it tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know how much of this is on Luchi, because I just felt like the players didn't execute. I don't think necessarily the game plan is the wrong game plan. And of course, whatever game plan you have partially gets thrown out the window when you give up a goal in the first 2 minutes because your center backs are passing the ball across the box to the other team. The Quakes thought they were playing St. Louis City, but that's on Saturday. You're not supposed to, just pass the ball, to the other team unless you're playing against St. Louis City in this league. So, that all of a sudden, puts you in a situation of kind of being out of the game plan. And I don't know if the Quakes then kind of expected the Dynamo to kind of sit back and be a little bit comfortable getting an early 1-0 cushion, but the Dynamo didn't play comfortably. It took until there was a water break in the first half for the Quakes to even look like they got into the game after the water break, after Luchi was showing them stuff on the clipboard and being animated at them and pointing at his chest like, you got to have some heart, you got to get in there and you got to fight. And they showed it for the rest of the first half, and they showed it for the first part up until the delay of the second half. After the delay, I don't know what happened to this, but it all left. It was gone. There was none of this past 60 minutes. I don't think that's on Luchi. I think it's on the players tonight.
But I think you are giving Luchi Gonzalez a lot of credit for a game plan that was fantastically, catastrophically bad, because he went into Houston. The Quakes went into Houston in 100-degree heat and tried to stretch the game, tried to press Houston, tried to slow down the game and make it large. That worked against them the entire time. The press didn't work for 1 minute in the first half, Jamon. Here's what the press consisted of in the first half. The press consisted of Nico Shakiris going on kamikaze runs. He was chasing the ball all the way to the goalkeeper, and all Houston Dynamo had to do was play to the center back, pass into the 6, and then they're on a breakaway. And then, Judson and Jackson Ewell are having to recover in the midfield. They don't know whether to step forward up to the defensive midfielder or to drop back to cover. They don't know what to do. Then the entire midfield is blown apart. The entire defensive structure that Luchi Gonzalez really values is blown apart in the space of 10 seconds is all it takes for Houston Dynamo to get in behind, get the ball wide, and get in dangerous situations. That was a bad game plan. They should not have been pressing that way from the very beginning, Jamon.
No, I don't think there's a problem at all with the press. I mean, you want to send a young guy because he's going to play 45 minutes from the get-go. By the way, I fully expect that it was going to be Shakira's 45 minutes, Montero 45 minutes, and that was the game plan from the very beginning. I completely expect that. Why else would you fly Montero all the way from Cape Verde to Houston to just sit him on the bench? No. There's a plan here. You're going to, have Shakira start. You're going to have Montero come in. To send Shakiris, after the goalkeeper, to pressure the goalkeeper to try to kick long, instead of sending Jeremy Abobasi, who's going to have to play 90-plus minutes, I think is the right game plan. What I think is that the midfield didn't do their job in terms of the pressure. Like you said, they were able to play through their 6 and then play out quickly. There was no pressure in the central midfield. That's why Luchi's pointing at his chest. They weren't executing. They weren't stepping and putting the pressure into the right places.
Jamon.
They were giving Houston too much space to be able to do whatever they wanted to do. That's not on Luchi. That's on the players.
Luchi was putting his players in an impossible situation.
No, he wasn't.
This is Nico Shakiris' second or third start in Major League Soccer. He barely has his legs under him in the league. And you're asking him to start the press trigger. You're putting the press triggers on him and then asking him in 100-degree heat to recover more than anyone else in the game. He was gassed by 25 minutes because he was put in an impossible situation.
That's not what he's asking. Judson didn't execute and Yule didn't execute in their jobs in that scenario. Nico's doing exactly what he should do. You're putting the blame on the wrong player here.
Nico was doing what he should do in triggering the press, but that worked badly, and that then it tired him out. If you watch the end of the first half there, Jamon, Nico Shakiris was essentially walking around the field, and players were gliding by him. He wasn't able to defend because he'd worn his legs out after 25 minutes.
Christian's got it right. Judson was running around without a plan today. He was not effective in this particular game. He does not bring, from a pressure side in those particular situations, he fouls. That's what he does. He grabs shirt and he fouls, and he's, I think, the first Quakes to be suspended for yellow card accumulation because he will not be available against St. Louis City. Thank goodness right now, because that was a shocker from him. And he's not the only one. Obviously, Tanner Beeson had a shocker tonight too. But what you're not getting is you didn't get pressure to the ball in the midfield when you want to press with your 10. The Quakes press with their 10 all the time. It literally is their standard press on the road to send Montero in that way and to have the other players press. But Judson did not do what Gruezo does do in those situations. That was what the problem was.
Okay, so then the question is, at the weekend against St. Louis, you get Gruezo back in there, you get Jamir Montero starting most likely. Do these issues solve themselves? Are we, talking about a moot point here? Is it simply personnel? You need to have Gruezo and Jamiro in the lineup to make this work?
I just think you have to have probably a bit of a different plan. I think you're finding out, what your limitations are with a player like Judson instead of Gruezo, and the game plan, that you might have been able to get away with against teams that are not playing as well right now. You didn't get away with on the road against a team that has been excellent at home all season long. Let's make no mistake. The Houston Dynamo are one of the best home teams in the entire league, folks. In the entire league. 2 goals against them before tonight. The Quakes only made the 3rd goal against them at home this year. So when you go down 2-1 on the road, you give them 2 goals, you've already lost the game because no one else has been able to come back, with that type of game all year. You were going to get a 1-0 game at best. So that's part of what your problem is from the get-go is spotting them 2 goals early. The first one's a complete gift, right? And to the Quakes' credit, they got back into a position where they could have done something with the game. They could have nicked a set piece here. They could have maybe gotten a transition in a situation here. Like for instance, a Bobasi had toward the end of the game, we were doing our pre-Aftershock show for anyone who missed it. Alex and I were just kind of having fun during the end of the rain delay, and then we just kind of kept it going through the atrocious end of the game. But instead of playing the simple ball to Espinoza and sending Espinoza 1v1 with the keeper, Bobasi tries to go all Pablo Ruiz and try to chip the keeper from 60 yards out, and that was the way that the game went. Like the wrong decisions and the wrong situations, didn't play the right pass here, didn't step to the defender here. It was individual mistakes all night long. And that's the first time since St. Louis that the Quakes have been done in completely by individual mistakes in a game this season since St. Louis.
Jamon, you've got it all backwards. Jeremy Ebobisse knew that the only way to salvage the game at that point was if he put it top bins from 40 yards out.
Yeah,
he knew what the fans were looking for in that situation.
I appreciate
that was not an error. That was a deliberate, intentional decision.
I appreciate that you are playing to the fan who wants to see the Quakes get a goal that's even better than Quincy Amarikwa's chip in your lifetime. But that was the wrong situation to do.
Okay, but let's talk about the attack, because we could we could harp on Tanner Beeson and Rodriguez and the the defense all night tonight, but going forward, they really didn't cause many issues either. They were the midfield was invisible in the buildup as well, Jamon. They felt disconnected. They weren't able to move the ball forward to the middle. They weren't able to connect with the wide players. I can't remember Benji Ikanovich touching the ball. Even a guy like Christian Espinosa, who was doing his hardest to get involved, he was dropping back. He was getting slammed every time he got the ball. They were not able to get him the ball in good situations. What was wrong with the buildup tonight?
So yeah, it's a really good point, because the Quakes have kind of found that teams are starting to understand how they're going to build out, what those build out patterns are, and they've come up with a pretty good scheme over the last 2 to 3 games. And this has been one of the reasons that the Quakes have not been able to generate the chances that they were able to generate earlier in the year, is because the build out has become a bit of a problem. So every time that they need to build out, they're pulling back Yule, they're pulling back, in this case, it would have been Shakiris a bit, but normally it's going to be Montero. They're bringing them both back into the build out, and they're very rarely feels like they're getting the opportunity to kind of play to the other central midfielder, like we were saying that Houston was able to do tonight with Herrera. The Quakes have not been able to find that kind of ball that allows them to really kind of play out and then be able to take advantage of numbers once they break a press. It's been too often that the Quakes get kind of trapped in the corner and they don't know how to get out. You got to kick it off a guy's leg to get a throw in. And by then, by the time you actually work the ball up the field, either through fouls or through, throw-ins or whatever the case is, the defense is already in place. You've got no chance to be able to try to break them down and be able to create the transition goals that are so important in a league like Major League Soccer. That has not been on. When's the last time the Quakes scored a transition goal this season? I think Cade Cowell, the way that they started against LAFC was good, or at least the penalty that they drew. And against LAFC, Cade Cowell, created that opportunity back to Abobasi. At home. I believe that was the last game, right? In the 2-1 win last weekend. So, but those opportunities have been few and far between in this stretch. And for me, one of their problems is in the way that they are building out is too slow. It's too predictable. The other teams know what the patterns are. They've already planned for it. They scheme their press around those types of patterns, and they take away the Quakes' ability to be able to get the advantage of breaking a press.
I can tell you the pattern right now, Jamon. The ball that the San Jose Earthquakes use to break the press is direct balls into the wide players, either from the center back, Rodriguez, Tanner Beeson, or the fullback, direct into one of the wide players. You get a cutback, and then you switch it. But teams know that now, so they're double teaming Espinosa, they're double teaming Jeremy Abobasi anytime they drop into the midfield. And then the Quakes have trouble playing vertically, because we know that's exactly what Luchi Gonzalez meant when he joined the San Jose Earthquakes, and he says, he wants to play vertically. It's those balls. But the Quakes haven't thought about the next step. They haven't started making more runs in behind. They haven't started to send, Jamiro Montero in behind. They haven't started, creating enough movement in those spaces to really disrupt the opposition. They feel a little static in this moment. Does that resonate with you, that assessment?
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. And by the way, I'm not going to share any of the Tanner Beeson comments people are making. And this is a really good comment for Ryan Grady. Corey Marin scored Houston's second goal tonight. He went to Stanford. So guess what? It's not a Stanford issue, guys. We're not going to share that type of stuff on the show.
We're having some right now as we're talking. So for this time, we can just do audio, and we're only going to take 2 questions, given the plight police that we have to kind of face right now. So let's take 2 very quick questions. First one from Jamon, and then we'll go to Alex. Go ahead, Jamon.
Unmuted.
Hi, Luchi. It's Jamon. Obviously, a tough game tonight. Defensively, felt like the structure wasn't in place for 3 of those goals. Another goal given up was a gift. What needs to be tightened up before you face a dangerous team in St. Louis on Saturday? Thank you.
Muted.
Everything. We didn't really show up tonight. We didn't compete the way that we know we're capable of, the way we have in most of the games this season. So obviously we're disappointed, and I won't take away credit from Houston. They took it to us from the beginning. Of course, a mistake there that happens, and I did see a bit of a response from us right before the half. And then going into a rain delay, 2-1, 30 minutes, about 30 minutes left to play. And certainly there's belief and hope in the group. But again, flat defensively, not defending to our capacity in terms of pressing and defending box. So, we weren't relentless enough either in terms of our attack and getting numbers in the box, putting balls in the box. So just not a good night for us. And we know we're better than this. And it's about moving forward quickly and building and showing a response for our fans and our family on Saturday against a team that is a very difficult team to play that beat us to their place. And now we want to show a response in multiple ways on Saturday. We have the capacity to do that.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi, Luchi. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope you all are staying safe and to the extent you can, staying dry out there. I'm wondering, going into the rain delay, can you walk us through what that was like? When you knew the game was going to be restarted, and what the game plan that you had for those, last half and 30 minutes was, because it seemed like an opportunity to increase the pressure on Houston and try to get the second goal, but that didn't come to fruition. So why do you think that the last 30 minutes panned out the way they did?
Yeah, we certainly felt we had an opportunity, like a second chance, going into the last 30 minutes after the delay. The energy of the boys was good. In the locker, they were patient, and we were almost treating it like a second leg. We called it like let's win the second leg. But it didn't happen, and look, we could talk about how we try to have Buddha, J-Bo, Christian press against their three, Mito, Juice and Jackson reference in the midfield and take away. I actually thought we did that well about the first 3-4 possessions they had in the extra 30 minutes, in those 30 minutes. But then we gave the ball right back. We just weren't, our quality wasn't high with the ball, not just without it. Yeah, and it showed. It was, again, I think we could have had a perfect tactic or not a perfect tactic tonight. It wasn't a night for us in terms of how we compete, how we win duels, and how we attack with creativity and confidence. It wasn't our night. Give full credit to Houston. When it was fully theirs, they were clinical, they were aggressive, and this is not about the Heat. The Heat was not a factor tonight. This is not about the Heat. It just wasn't our night. We got to accept that, and we got to move forward quickly because we have a very difficult and challenging game against a team we definitely want to play on Saturday.
Thank you, everyone. Just wrap tonight's post game.
Good night, guys.
Okay. So as I'm saying in the chat right now, if anyone is going to be giving anyone else trouble tonight, it's just a loss, people. Chill. We're not going to allow that kind of attacking of people in the chat. So I've already banned one person tonight, and I'm in a great mood to start banning more people. So don't test me. Okay.
Jamon, what happened in the 30 seconds I was
No,
gone?
we got people attacking people for where they go to college and other personal comments, and we're not going to stand for it. That's not what this show is about. It's about a community. It's about a community. It's one loss. It's a bad game. Bad games happen to every team. Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about what has to get fixed by Saturday. But clearly, Luchi Gonzalez did not think that they came out with the kind of passion and heart that he expected from them tonight.
That was the shortest Luchi Gonzalez press conference we've ever had. I'm pretty confident in that. But I also think that was one of the most brutally honest Luchi Gonzalez press conferences that we've ever had. I think fans over the last few weeks have maybe gotten used to hearing some of the same platitudes from Luchi Gonzalez, some of the same talking points about the process and the fact that he found positives to take away from some of these games, even if they were getting poor results or getting outperformed. But he didn't hold any shots tonight. He he was pretty brutally honest in his assessment that was not a good enough performance from the Earthquakes. I don't think we've seen him come out and say anything like that before. The quote that I grabbed was, we didn't show up tonight. We didn't compete in the way we have in the rest of the games this season. I think he directly questioned the intensity and the desire that the team showed tonight, in the press, in the attack, in the way they executed the game plan. I mean, it seemed like he threw up his hands and said, he literally said, and I quote, "It didn't matter what tactics we tried tonight. It was not our night. It was not going to work." That's a pretty harsh assessment of the players, Jamon, but I'm guessing you're not surprised based on the way you said it.
No, I mean, I said it was the players. I said it was an execution issue. And, and by the way, we have asked, so, and Crystal's saying here, we have asked Luchi, and Alex, I'm sure will be happy to give you, the feedback that we were able to get. But, unless we're meeting with Chris Leach, we're not going to get clear answers on this. So look, I know everyone wants signings. I completely understand it. I don't think signings is the trouble tonight. I think you've seen that the team is a little thin in multiple positions. And we've said this from the beginning of the year. We've said that the team is thin at striker. The team is thin at left wing. The team is thin in central midfield. The team is thin at the 6. The team is thin, in center back, losing Nathan. There's only 3 players that they trust to play center back right now for this team. And if 2 of those were gone for some reason or went down with an injury, I don't think that there's anyone that they're ready to trust to be able to step in. As much as I like a player like Daniel Muni, I don't think that they think, that he's ready, to start a game. Tanner Beeson started a game in his very first season. Not only did he start a game, he ended up playing several games in his very first season. Was he ready for that first game? Heck no. He got ripped apart in that first game against LAFC. He was at fault for 3 goals, right? But did it get better?
What's changed, Jamon?
No, but Alex, let's be fair, because there's something called the Tanner Beeson effect going on for a while. When Tanner Beeson played, this team played much better, and when he didn't, they gave up many more goals. Let's not forget what happened at the start of the season. I think we're sunshine and roses on Jonathan Mensah here, and I like Jonathan Mensah too. But the Quakes were giving up 2 goals a game on the road for pretty much the first 12 games of the season. The first 6-7 road games that Mensah played in, they were giving up 2 goals a game. That was the average. 2 goals a game. That's a lot to give up, on the road. It should be more like 1.5. And that was with Jonathan Mensah starting. As soon as you start Tanner Beeson, you might be giving up more XG, but you're actually giving up fewer goals until tonight. Okay. And the results were there. The Quakes had got results with Tanner Beeson starting in their last 3 road games. I think there's maybe a little bit of a rabbit's foot, a little bit of a lucky charm to it. I completely get it. But tonight, that luck ran out. Okay.
David, you've given up on your argument halfway through. You gave up on your argument when you admitted that the San Jose Earthquakes have given up significantly more XG ever since Tanner Beeson stepped into the starting lineup.
But they were getting results. And we've heard Luchi say that, yes, the XG has not been good, but we're getting results right now. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, tonight, the luck ran out, right? The XG, went against them. The result went completely against them. But a lot of that was due to the lack of the defensive pressure that we had been seeing in the previous games. That defensive pressure existed in Seattle. That defensive pressure existed in LAFC, and they got bit by a little bit unlucky ball jump up and hit a hand, right? That defensive pressure existed in other road games, the draw that they got a couple weeks ago. That defensive pressure has been existing, but tonight, that defensive pressure was not there. That's the biggest difference.
Across, and I think this applies across the field. The defensive pressure was not good in the front line. The defensive pressure was not good in the midfield, and the defensive pressure was not good in the back line. And that's why I kind of disagree, Jamon, with the framing that these were individual errors.
Sandra, hang on, Alex.
They weren't individual errors.
Sandra, I need to warn somebody.
Problems across the field.
I need to warn somebody. Sandra, stop it now. or I will permanently ban you. Stop it right now. Cut it out. I don't want to see any more in the chat tonight. You'll be permanently gone. You've been a good person on this show. I enjoy having you in the chat, but tonight you're out of line, so stop it. Okay, back to you, Alex. Sorry, I had to make that comment.
Thank you, Jamon. I just think that tonight that the suggestion that these were individual errors doesn't really conflate with what I saw, which was the fact that the Earthquakes across the field were not making the right decisions, and that to me tells me that they were set up poorly. They weren't set up with the right pressure tonight. I think tonight it would have made much more sense just to sit deep from the beginning and not to try to press. The press looked bad because they were overstretched, because they were trying to do something that wasn't going to work against this Houston team that we know, Jamon, as you said earlier, have only allowed 2 goals at home.
Right. So look, I'm still kind of upset about the stuff going on in the chat over there. Kind of almost racist comments there. I'm pretty upset about that. So, look, Tanner Beeson has had good games this season. He's had a couple poor games this season. Certainly tonight was, if Luchi needed a wake-up call in terms of, Tanner Beeson's shortcomings, tonight was the night to get that. Let's see if he thinks that it's a temporary blip and goes back to starting Mensah, or if there's really something unresolvable right now between him and Mensah, we could continue to see Tanner Beeson. People have asked, is there a problem between Luchi and Mensah? We don't know. We don't know. He said that he's 100% back, but he's not starting. So there's something that we are not seeing here. There's something the team is not telling us. So, you guys can keep asking it, but the answer is we don't know.
I mean, Jamon, I hate to speculate, but I do feel like the comment that Luchi Gonzalez made last week, saying to us on the Aftershock show that Jonathan Mensah is 100% back. He's no longer, undergoing any disciplinary punishment. He is available to play. He is on the bench. He was used last week. I think that gives us a little green light to wonder whether there has been a rift between Luchi Gonzalez and Jonathan Mensah, because otherwise I don't really understand these game day decisions. And and I think that if Tanner Beeson continues to be the starting player in that lineup, I'd be baffled, and I'd start to ask questions about Jonathan Mensah's future with this team, because I think Akash is right. Look, Beeson has been a really, really solid servant to the San Jose Earthquakes team. Any comments that are undermining his professionalism, any comments that are undermining his desire, his commitment to this club, are completely off base, because we've seen Tanner Beeson game after game throw his body, put his body on the line to make some incredible last-ditch saves. There could be a whole highlight reel compilation video about Tanner Beeson's last-ditch tackles and blocks. That's what he's made for. But the partnership with Rodriguez has not been working. In that is pretty clear, I think, at this point, that they don't cover each other and they don't communicate in the way that Jonathan Mensah and Rodriguez very clearly were. And in the back line with Jonathan Mensah and Rodriguez, you felt confident, Jamon, that they had it covered, that whenever the opposition broke in behind, whenever they broke Grezzo or whoever in the midfield was, that they would step up and they would win the ball. They felt composed. You don't feel that way about the San Jose Earthquakes back line anymore. And that's in part because Rodriguez isn't the kind of player. He's not the rock back there who would complement Tanner Beeson. That's Jonathan Mensah. I think honestly a Jonathan Mensah, Tanner Beeson starting back line would make more sense than a Rodriguez, Tanner Beeson back line.
You want to answer the question?
Do we ever find out what his suspension was about? We did not, and we have asked, but we have not gotten any straight answers from the club. And I think a part of this is that we need to respect their privacy on that matter. Jonathan Mensah, from everything that he's shown, outwardly has been a professional player. And given that there's, clearly an ongoing situation within the club, I think we want to, respect the club's ability to handle that disciplinarily with whatever they need to do. But now that we know the disciplinary issue is over, now is when I think we need to start asking questions about why Jonathan Mensah is no longer back in the lineup.
Could it be that there's it was just kind of more of a game by game decision to try to keep both of them fresh and to play one of them tonight and one of them, against St. Louis? I think the answer is yes, that's possible. Unfortunately, getting only the chance to ask 2 questions tonight, we didn't really get a chance to even frame up a type of question that we think Luchi would be able to answer. Normally, if you say, like, why are you not playing this guy? Coaches don't tend to react well to those questions. I know people think we should ask it, and Alex is pretty creative sometimes in coming up with ways to ask those questions, as he has in the past. I trust him if that's the most important question he wants to ask, to figure out a creative way to be able to get an answer, since he's very good at that. And I'm a direct guy, and I'm not creative enough to come up with stuff like that. All right. So Rodriguez still on loan. The answer is yes. But, I think the very obvious business here is the Quakes he's not being recalled that we know of. So thereby the Quakes have the option already out there to extend the loan. If you go back to the episode, the recording that I did with Colin Etnier, we go through this in a good amount of detail. So highly recommend, not because I was there, but because Colin's really good at answering these questions, to go back and listen to the recording that we did about a week ago, where he talked about the Rodriguez loan, how it applies to the salary cap, and that it feels like it should be a no-brainer, given that he's starting every single game this season, is very key to that back line when it is working well. For the Quakes to be able to just extend that loan through the season, and then with an option to be able to extend, I believe, for another year before they have to make a decision about signing him to a permanent deal. But Jamon, we don't know what the amount is on a permanent deal, by the way.
If Rodriguez has got a little John Stones in him, surely he's worth that contract extension then.
If the Quakes think that Rodriguez would have value on the market, and the deal that's written into the loan in terms of the buyout is attractive, feel free. But we don't know what that money is. That's the one thing that we can say is we can tell you what the loan amount is, because the MLSPA publishes the information even for loans. What we cannot tell you is how much the amount is for the buyout clause.
Look, Jamon, all I know is that I think Rodriguez can be a part of the solution in the build out. We were talking about how the build out feels predictable, how the opposition are reading these patterns of play. I will say that the few times it feels like the Quakes have been able to change that is when Rodriguez beats the first line of defense, steps into the midfield, and then finds a pass. That completely throws the opposition press out of whack, all off of balance. And I think that's why we're seeing the comparisons to John Stones here. That's what John Stones was able to do in the Champions League final against Inter Milan. He was able to step forward in a way that's completely unconventional of a center back, and cause problems. And that's what we've seen Rodriguez do time in and time out. And, he's been doing that all season. He's been making these ridiculous, risky plays all season, and he hasn't yet given up any catastrophic errors. I mean, his composure on the ball is really ridiculous. He has not had one back pass gone awry. He's not tripped over himself at one point this season. He deserves a lot of credit for his inventiveness and his composure in those tight situations, stepping forward into the middle and creating chances, because that's given the Quakes a weapon from center back that they haven't had in a long time, Jamon. I cannot remember the last ball-playing center back that the San Jose Earthquakes had that is as strong as Rodriguez in there. We've seen players, center backs who are, willing to take chances. That's Francisco Calvo. We've seen center backs who are, really solid and composed on the ball. I'm thinking of somebody like Clarence Goodson, but we've not seen those two qualities in the same player. We've not seen somebody be able to do this so successfully. And that's credit to Rodriguez. And I think that's why we need to see a Rodriguez, Jonathan Mensah starting lineup, before we see a Mensah, Tanner Beeson lineup.
Yeah, there is. By the way, I would be somewhat interested in a Mensah, Tanner Beeson just to kind of see it. So I hope at some point that they do it. And the reason,
Jamon, you're going to let your curiosity get the better of you.
I know. But there's a reason for this, and the reason is because you get the outside foot, and you get kind of the two naturals. And if you want Mensah on the field with the left foot, from Tanner Beeson, I think you have to would have to try it and see how it goes. Clearly, they've tried it in practice and it's not gone well because they haven't experimented with it in a game. So they might not be using that unless an injury forces them to. We don't know for sure if the option has already been exercised or not. It could have been exercised. So just to point that out, that because we haven't had any sort of update from Chris Leach, and probably won't ahead of the transfer window. Normally, if he does an update, it would be after the transfer window. Then there's a good chance that we won't know if the loan was exercised. But if he keeps playing, at some point, you're just going to kind of know it was exercised because otherwise it would have run out. So let's see. There's a lot of good stuff here. Really wish that we had a better understanding of our strength with Nathan before a transfer window. I've seen kind of a bit that it's possible that Nathan could return before the end of the season, but I think the problem is at that point he is probably going to be playing behind at least two, if not all three of the center backs that we've been seeing. It would be kind of risky probably to run Nathan out if this team is playing for a playoff spot, unless there is a really good reason to do that. And maybe even give him a start or two at Quakes too, just to make sure that he's getting the rust off and that he looks okay to go, and doesn't have any problems with the was ACL, I think it is, Alex, if I remember right. Was it an ACL right, and NCL, or was it just ACL?
But look, I'm not entirely sure if it was both, Jamon. But I don't really think it changes what the Earthquakes have to do. They have three players who can start at center back. I don't think you need four. I don't think that's the piece that's going to change San Jose's fortunes this season. I think we've been pretty clear that it's another player in the midfield. It's another winger who can pick up the slack and produce some goals. Because I'm confident that Luchi Gonzalez can figure out the defensive issues. We've seen the Earthquakes be, make real solid strides defensively this season, and they've still only allowed 24 goals, which is, right in the middle of the pack, even after a 4-goal performance like tonight. They have Danielle back there, who's been phenomenal. Where they need to improve is going forward, right, Jamon? Because they've only scored 22, and that's not a tally that's going to get them a home playoff spot. They're not scoring at the rate that will secure a home playoff spot, and that's pretty clear. And if you look at their last few games, 1 goal this game, 0 goals against Portland, 0 goals against Colorado, 1 goal against Seattle, 1 goal against Dallas. They haven't had enough 2-goal performances to give me confidence that they can improve through the late summer stretch of this season without any offensive additions.
Yeah, and Akash makes a good point here, but I think Colin also answered the question in the video, which is the Quakes have set kind of a high bar so far for the type of talent that they've been bringing in. That's why their previous windows have worked out so well, is because they've set that high bar. But the problem is that bar might be too high. They might not be bringing in the journeyman type to provide that level of depth. I don't think Rubio Rubin fits an MLS journeyman. I think he's better than an MLS journeyman. I think, other options in RSL that maybe will fall out of favor due to breaking in, Cucho into that situation is, we'll see. But by the way, there's how many other teams in this league now? This team has gotten so big that every other team is also looking for value in MLS journeyman. So, while I think there will be options made available in the transfer market from some teams, you have to keep in mind that there are other teams that are putting those players out there for other reasons. And it's always important to kind of take some of that into account.
And the player at Real Salt Lake who we'd been excited about, I'm not sure if he's on the market anymore, Jamon. We were excited about Diego Luna, former Quakes Academy player, star of the U20 World Cup. He was not getting minutes at Real Salt Lake earlier this season. But guess what, Jamon? He comes back from the U20 World Cup. He's now a starter in that team. He now scored his first Major League Soccer goal tonight in their victory over St. Louis. And he's starting on left wing, which is not where we've seen him spend the most time before, usually more central. But he's succeeding, Jamon. If he's getting a starting spot, I cannot imagine that he'll want to jeopardize that with a move, especially if there's not an obvious starting spot for him to have in San Jose. So now the question is, okay, who's the odd man out there?
I think that's Rubio it would take $2 million in GAM. Could be Rubio Rabin, could be Anderson Julio. I think it would take a ton of GAM to bring in Diego Luna at this point, but more than likely they've got their sights set on a move, to Europe, and are hoping that they'll be able to use the World Cup plus giving him some experience in MLS and a goal like tonight. I'm sure RSL's got their sights set on being able to move him into Europe.
So the other team we were keeping track of, Jamon, is Inter Miami, who are also going to have a fire sale to make room for Messi. A couple players in their offensive lineup who might need to be moved around. I'm thinking of guys like Stefanelli, like Kramashi. Is that how you say it, Jamon? Is Kramashi the right way to pronounce it in there?
I'm not great because I don't watch a lot of Inter Miami, so I don't actually quite know how to say it.
They've both contributed to their goaling tallies this season. But, I do pity the man who is moved out as Messi is being moved in. I have to imagine that would be a deflating transfer situation to think you're going to get to play with the one and only Lionel Messi and be a part of that circus and journey, and then be moved to the opposite coast, San Jose, and have to watch from 3,000 miles away as Messi takes MLS by storm. So maybe we wouldn't wish that upon any player to be moved out to make room for Messi. Jamon, I know that we're getting close to the hour mark here, and we've been streaming for almost 2 hours consecutively now. I encourage everyone to go back, and if you need some more entertainment tonight, to watch the watch along that Jamon and I did during the rain delay.
Yeah, the problem is you need to go back to the start of the rain delay and then watch that abysmal performance again in order for what we're saying in some situations to make sense. But to be fair, we actually started the watch along back watching like MLS 360 and checking out some of the other games going on in the Western Conference tonight, because it looked like the teams at the top of the table were pretty much crapping the bed, and teams at the bottom of the table were going to get points off them. And the Western Conference is really, really tight right now, despite the loss tonight. Probably could have expected to go into Houston and get a loss. I know my simulator had it at over 50% to be able to happen. But still, we believe that the magic number for the Earthquakes holds at 7 wins to be able to get a home playoff spot. It's possible. It will maybe take one more, depending if the top of the table plays above expectations the rest of the way.
Jamon, I think that's the 5th time that you've mentioned the simulator tonight. So I think I win bingo tonight.
You win bingo. Quick question here. There's some talk about Nathan. So announce Nathan's contract extension, or believe that Nathan is a liability at this point and have another potential big injury down the road. Would you resign Nathan at this point, Alex?
I think you need to monitor his progress. I don't think you can give anyone a new contract extension in the middle of their ACL rehab. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that's what the player would want. I don't think that's what the club would want. So I think you have to wait and see. I'm gonna withhold judgment on that one until we get more clarity about the future of his injury rehab, Jamon.
So, full team has enough depth to rotate. Obviously, on a night like tonight, after a loss, people feel like you're several players short. Go out there and win, and everyone's like, we're in good shape. We're just a player short. Do you agree that Showfeast would thrive under Luchi? I say no. Showfeast would absolutely screw this defense up 9 ways to Sunday. They would give up way more goals than he could potentially score. I say no to a player like Showfeast. Whoever you bring in from an attacking side has to be able to provide you just a modicum of defense. We saw what happened tonight. Let's be honest. We saw what happened tonight, with the downside of a Nico Shakiris a little bit. Someone who doesn't bring you the type of coverage that a Montero brings, and what that happens if your central midfield doesn't step up.
Jamon,
so
I'm saying,
do I want the Showfeast in here? The answer is 100% no.
Jamon wants Andy Rios to return. There's the most defensive number 10 that you've ever had on the San Jose Earthquakes team.
I do not want Andy Rios to return either.
Jamin, before we start wrapping, I do want to make sure we're plugging.
I'm like way
Patreon.
behind. There's all kinds of other stuff like going on here. I think I haven't gone forward for a while.
I think that the Patreon Slack deserves a shout out tonight because it got me through that hour and a half weather delay. For $2 a month, you can join our Patreon and get access to all the articles produced at Quakes Epicenter by our lovely team, Robert Jonas, Colin Etnier, Phil Leva. Colin and Jamon actually just made a video about the salary situation, the roster situation heading into the secondary transfer window opening July 5th. Everyone should go check that out. For $5 a month, you can join the Patron Slack channel, and then you'll have something to do during the hour and a half rain delays, and you can come and spend it with all of us in the Patron Slack. So we appreciate all of our Slack members for making tonight bearable, and want to bring it back around to you, Jamon. It feels like we've been going on forever tonight. We could keep going forever, but I want to hear your final thoughts tonight, what you're thinking about heading into the St. Louis match this weekend.
Well, I mean, every game that the Quakes play against teams that are above them in the standings obviously becomes the most important game on the schedule. St. Louis, definitely no different. The Quakes really need to set up to be able to take 3 points. This is not the same St. Louis team that they faced earlier in the season. They're going to be down a number of weapons due to injury. Tonight, they went on the road and lost to RSL 3-1. No, they lost at home to RSL 3-1. Mm-hmm. So a home loss tonight from St. Louis City. So it's definitely not the same team. In fact, we watched the end of that game, and a number of us noted how, dejected their players look. They are a team that is not playing with the level of confidence they had earlier in the season, and they lack some of the weapons as well. Their goalkeeper, Berkey, kind of like Daniel, came just flying out of the gates, saving everything. But had a tough night tonight, has not played as well recently as well, and is starting to trend down. And we'll see. I think that's going to be an extremely important game. If the Quakes can find a way to get 3 points against St. Louis, then the hopes of getting a home playoff spot are much stronger. Anything less than that, and it damages a bit, because if you don't get points against the teams above you, that means you got to get pretty much all the teams against the points against the teams below you. And
it's pretty amazing, Jamon. St. Louis, regardless of their start, they're only 2 points above the San Jose Earthquakes in the Western Conference table tonight.
That's right.
And the Earthquakes have the opportunity to leapfrog them in the standings.
Still
leapfrog them in the standings with a victory this weekend. So this is a big opportunity for the San Jose Earthquakes. As you say, St. Louis, their last 4 matches, 3-1 loss against Real Salt Lake tonight, 3-1 loss against Nashville, 1-1 draw with the Galaxy, 2-0 loss to FC Dallas, Jamie. They haven't won in 4 games. This should be a match that San Jose expect to win. They need to put that 3-1 victory, 3-1 defeat in St. Louis behind them in the rearview mirror. And they need to come out with a lot more confidence, a lot more intensity than they did tonight. They need to put St. Louis on the back foot, and they need to figure out this press, because tonight it was not working. This team, the midfield collapsed defensively, and they weren't able to get anything going forward. And we heard Luchi Gonzalez, I think, more pissed off, more fired up than we've seen him, at any point in this season. And I know there have been some folks on in the comments on this show, who's questioning his lack of intensity, his lack of fire in these post-match press conferences. I think you got that tonight. We didn't get to see him. We didn't get to see Luchi Gonzalez's angry grimace tonight. It was only audio due to the weather issues that they're having, the storm that they're having in Houston. But you could hear it in his voice, Jamon. He was not happy with tonight's performance, and I think this is fair to say. This is, one of their worst performances this season, up there with the loss that they had to St. Louis. One of those games that on all fronts they're not stepping up to the plate. So, with that said, we look forward to getting a clean slate again on Saturday, and it's one of those games, Jamon, where I think the team is going to be happy that there's a quick turnaround, and they're not going to want to have to mull too long over this one. And so we hope to see everyone there again on Saturday night. I will be there at the stadium with Robert Jonas, with our amazing Quakes Epicenter crew. We will be joining you live from PayPal Park and hope to see everyone there. And thanks for sticking through this, what is this now, going on 6-hour saga with us tonight. So I appreciate everyone for sticking around, and signing off for now.
Robert sends his regrets, by the way, internet troubles tonight, but
caught up in the storm.
Caught up in the storm. Apparently it hit Robert's house as well. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining the Aftershock.